All right. Welcome to the Bacon, Bibles, and Barbells Podcast. My name's Justin Johnson. I'm joined with Coach Emily and Coach Amanda, and AshBrews is here to talk about her fitness journey, mindset, and everything else, the whole ball of wax. Ashley actually had me on her show called AshBrews about a month and a half ago, and we talked about some things, and we really want to talk to her about her fitness journey, specifically like mindset shift, how she's still working to overcome challenges and everything. So real quick, Ash, can you talk to us a little bit about first tell us a little bit about your podcast, what you're doing there, and then also like your background, even as a Christian and everything else, your journey, a very concise, life story, if you will, up until the point where you decide to change your life, basically.
All right. Well, I'll try not to, give you a whole movie script worth. It's a long story. I do the AshBrews Podcast. It's still in its infancy, which I appreciate you coming on board to help me talk about the important topic of, fitness and the body positivity movement, it's basically I am now the parent of an adult child, and I'm facing the empty nest syndrome, trying to figure out what I'm going to do next, what God wants me to do. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna do a podcast like everyone else in the world and see how I fit in. So I've been doing that. But as you mentioned, I am focused now on a serious life change of conquering obesity. I still got a ways to go, but I have made significant progress. I've lost almost 200 pounds in 3 years. So I'm well on my way. Yeah. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you. I'm well on my way. Some people might consider, it cheating, my method at first, which I'll get into. I have struggled with obesity my entire life. I have, mental health issues and all that other stuff that can contribute to food addiction and whatnot. After I had my daughter, my thyroid just went kaput. And so I was already over 200 pounds when I gave birth to my daughter. But within 2 years, on top of severe postpartum, I ended up shooting up to about 400, almost 450 pounds. So pretty bad, right? I had the metabolic system of a 62-year-old and arthritis in my knees, couldn't do normal things that everyone else could do. And then, I'm actually normally a very dark person, but I had been inside for so long, hiding from the world and in my unhealthiness, that I look kind of like a light green all the time, which is another reason why I picked the green color. But anyway, so my final straw was I kept having miscarriages, even though I knew it was the risk to get pregnant, being morbidly obese. I still wanted to have more kids and thought maybe I could get more help that way to lose weight. I kept having miscarriages, and I was having horrible menstrual cycles every 2 weeks, and I couldn't work. They were just so bad. I couldn't work. So bad. And the solution was birth control. And obviously that didn't work. That made my mental health issues skyrocket even more. Mm-hmm. So I ended up, after, let's say, a decade of dealing with this, I finally was able to convince my doctor, I need help, or a hysterectomy or something. We need to find out what's going on here. I can't function. So we had an ultrasound done, and they found that my uterus was just full of fibroids. It was just horrible. And they're like, well, we got to get this out. So I knew that my chance, if I had any left over, of having more kids is gone. And I remember looking at my husband, I said, I'm going to die, because I had my hysterectomy at 38, 39, somewhere around there. And I was like, I'm going to die. I now have to know for the rest of my life, I have no womb, mm-hmm. And, that really does something to your psyche, as a woman, especially at that age. And so I told him, I said, I can't do this anymore. This has to change. Something has to be done. And in my ignorance, I went and got a gastric sleeve, thinking I had this mentality of, if I treat myself like a drug addict has to go through the withdrawals. You got to go through that process. We can't really do that with food, right? Especially if you're susceptible to overeating and everything. So I'm like, well, if I treat myself as the addict that I am by physically preventing myself from overeating, this should be the best method. Yeah. And so, yeah, the first year I lost a lot of weight, like really fast. And I was like, this is great. This is fantastic. But once I had a severe crash, that I call them, with bipolar disorder, I started eating more. Even though I wasn't eating a lot at once, I started eating more throughout the day. Even though it was a little at a time, it was still amounting to about 2,500 calories a day. Yeah. So, as you can imagine, the pounds started coming back. And I ended up gaining 60 pounds. So even though I wasn't over that 400 limit that I started with, I was still putting the pounds back on, and it was getting scary. And I told my husband, I'm like, look, this is obviously a mental thing because I can't physically overeat, but I'm still continuously eating bad things. And so we've kind of come to this decision where it's like, okay, we're going to have to really make this an absolute lifestyle change, which I told myself this is what this surgery was supposed to be. But plenty of people that have gotten these surgeries that have blown right back up after a couple years because it's something that has to be intentional. There's no easy way out. Yeah. So I have been weightlifting. I have been eating better. And I'm still trying to find the best food intake for myself, because although I lost weight and have eye energy and do really well with the carnivore diet, I noticed that there was some other issues I was having. I was having more heart palpitations. And so I'm like, okay, well, let me introduce some vegetables back in and certain fruits, So that's kind of where I am. I'm like in this experimental stage of making sure I have the right nutrients, because after bariatric surgery, you have to take certain supplements for the rest of your life because of the malabsorption. So, so I'm trying to find that balance. And although my weight loss has slowed down, the weightlifting, I think, is helping kind of calibrate that, because I lost so much muscle with all the fat that I lost. And so even though the scale's not really going up, it's not really going down, but I'm getting more definition again. So that's basically where I'm at right now.
Yeah. So a couple of questions I have for you. One, there's a lot of, so the recommended daily, caloric intake across the entire population is 2,000 calories. That includes everybody. And so I'm hearing about a lot of women on social media who basically are saying, well, as a woman, you should never eat under 2,000 calories. Like, that's ridiculous. You can be perfectly healthy on 2,000 calories, and you'll lose weight, and it'll be great. Has that been your experience?
Well, it's still hard for me to hit my protein and caloric goals each day, especially since I'm more mindful of when I eat. Because, like I said, I wasn't overeating all at once. I was just eating repeatedly. So now that I'm trying to do like 3 meals a day with a healthy snack in between, it's still really, I'm barely pulling 90 protein a day, which is crazy. So I'm eating probably around 1,400 a day. And I know that's still not enough. But I have to kind of, I guess, stretch the pouch back out, the stomach, in order to be able to hold this stuff. Now, I also did the whole Ozempic thing for a little while, because I was trying to keep myself from eating repeatedly throughout the day. But that ended up causing blindness. We were, my husband took us to the movies one day, and all of a sudden I lost my vision. Like, everything got real spotty, and I was like, oh my God, I can't see. Like, and I wasn't saying God's name in vain. I literally was saying, oh my God, I cannot see. And my daughter held my hand and everything. And I'm like, I'm so scared right now. And we told my doctor, and he said, it is a side effect that you'll get, spotty vision and everything. But I'm like, this was more than spotty. I could not see. Everything was kind of like this white orange hue, and it was terrifying. And so I'm like, okay, I'm done with that. I'm not going to do that, you know.
Yeah.
And I already have thyroid issues, and it increases the chance of thyroid cancer. So I'm like, I don't need any more increasing chances of cancer. You know, I got enough of that against me as it is. So I stopped taking that, though it did help with curbing appetite. It did not help with anything else. It's not worth it.
Yeah. You've probably tried all of the things as far as, you know, the many, like you said, you're doing a lot of snacking, or you're doing a lot of snacking. And sometimes that's suggested, like have a lot of smaller kind of grays throughout the day, but it can get out of hand really quickly, as you've learned. But then stomach volume is so much smaller whenever you've had a bariatric surgery, that putting all of that into meals is also a hard thing to do. So you said you're doing about 3 meals a day right now. And I can see how with the volume, it is very hard to hit a protein goal with that. So, and then of course with the Ozempic, there's also the kind of stomach paralysis that can happen. So already having a smaller stomach and introducing that, very likely that you are nutrient deficient on of some things. That may even be the reason behind the vision changes, is some nutrients that haven't been able to be introduced, or at least not long enough in your food. I am glad to hear you've added some vegetables and fruits back. I'm not a huge opponent of carnivore. I think it has its place. I don't really think it's good long term, but it definitely has its place. So I'm glad to see that you've introduced some things back into that. Was that kind of a mindset shift, or has it been, when you're switching from one diet to another? Like those lies kind of creep in, like that just didn't work. That's never going to work. I'm just going to be stuck like this. Is that kind of thoughts that you have, or what are the thoughts whenever you're switching from one diet to another that you've had?
So surprisingly, carnivore was actually the easiest for me to adjust to.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it would be the hardest. But it was, everything tasted better. And I felt satiated every meal. Like even if it was just a small chicken thigh with bacon, you know, like I was just filling, I was satisfied, and I was happy. And I didn't feel like I was deprived of anything, which is weird because when I tried keto, I always felt deprived. So with the carnivore, I didn't feel that. But after a month of doing it, I started feeling these weird averse things. Now, as far as like trying all the other diets in the world, which I have done, my favorite is Mediterranean. I love Mediterranean food. I know it's high in fats and protein. It's like the best, healthiest food out there, but it's also extremely expensive. So I prefer Mediterranean over all the others. But I've tried vegan. That lasted barely a week. I've tried everything, and they were all just like ended in crashes. You know, it was always just a crash diet. I remember when I was younger, the big thing for women to lose weight was the cabbage soup diet.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all have heard of the cabbage soup diet.
I have heard of it, but I've never looked into it a lot. I was like, I'm good on that. I don't even need to look it.
Oh, it's the worst. You get like half a raw grapefruit and, you know, and then soup for the rest of the day. And it just, I remember the smell and everything. But like growing up, being bullied and wanting to lose weight, I would do all these crash diets and would just have this negative relationship with food. And in a way, I still do, because I'm always worried about what I'm eating, when I'm eating, what I'm doing. And even though I'll write something down or everything, I'm very, very critical. And I just want to be normal. I just want to be like, hey, this is a healthy plate of food. I'm going to eat it and go on with my day. But instead, I'm stressing about it, you know?
Right.
Even though I know it's the right food, I'm still stressing. And to try to help with my protein, I drink my protein. I try to drink protein shakes, or if I want a dessert, I have protein pudding, you know, that kind of stuff. But diets have all been difficult. Carnivore was great, but not for long term. But it does help reset the way I think about food, where it's like, I'm happy to eat this, not because, you know, I'm fat and hungry, but because I know I'm going to feel good when I'm done eating it, you know?
Yeah.
one of the most peculiar things is after each diet, and especially after the surgery, there were certain vegetables I cannot tolerate anymore. I can't tolerate the smell of them or taste them, like cauliflower. I hate cauliflower now. Can't stand it. I can barely tolerate broccoli. Usually any of the cruciferous stuff, I can't really process well.
With those. I actually can't process them at all. Like, it ruins my digestion. I've actually found that with quite a few people. It's kind of funny. It's like the stereotypical like bodybuilder on a cut diet is like chicken, rice, and cauliflower or broccoli, basically.
Yeah.
And that will wreck me if I were to do that. Like, that would be like, I could do salad instead. But like,
I could
a
do
lot
salads
of people
too.
have trouble digesting those specifically. In fact, I'm sure as women, you're all aware of the stereotype of, if you eat broccoli and you're nursing, your baby gets gassy. Like, there's a reason. There's a bunch of stuff in broccoli. Not to say that you shouldn't eat broccoli, but not everybody should eat broccoli. Actually, there are certain things that almost everybody can eat vegetable wise, like normal salad stuff. Like, hardly anybody has intolerances to spinach and, just all the leafy greens. But broccoli specifically is actually a pretty common problem. And I actually don't think I've ever put it on a diet plan unless someone said, like, I love broccoli. Then that means that to me that they can usually process it well. So like, okay, then we can load up on some broccoli. But like, unless someone asks for it, I just reach for the like, okay, I know they can take a big salad, so we're going to do that.
I do the salads and asparagus and onions and garlic. That's really all the vegetables I tolerate well. And then, fruit I keep very limited, like apples, oranges, and dates, some berries. And that's really it. The rest of it, I try to eat meat first over anything to try to meet that protein. So I have a friend, I think it's a mutual friend of ours. She's in San Antonio, and she's kind of been giving me some tips and offered to do a free weight workout with me the other day and kicked my butt. But she did give me some pointers on how to increase my meat more or my protein more. The problem is I've been eating a lot of high fat meats rather than the lean meats because I was still kind of stuck in the carnivore mentality of, steak, eggs, steak, all the steak. And it's like, it's wonderful and it's tasty, but I eat maybe a quarter of a steak and I'm ready to explode. So now I'm trying to do more like bacon wrapped chicken, chicken, lamb, fish, that kind of stuff, but mainly chicken.
Cut that I'm a fan of is pork tenderloin. Actually, it's just as lean as chicken. And it's usually low cost because for some reason, a lot of people don't seem to have figured it out, but it's actually like you can throw it in an oven with a dry rub on it and cook it. And it's really easy to eat, and it tastes great, and it gets you away from chicken, so you're not having chicken all the time. But it's just as lean as chicken, so it's actually like a great option that we've used a lot.
We use it a ton.
Yeah, and it seems like you've. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was saying I went to Costco and got like this huge pork roast, and so I split that into like 4 different dinners, and I've used it for like shredded pork. With the sugar-free barbecue sauce and all that stuff. So we've been kind of porked out lately, no pun intended, but we have been kind of taking a break on the pork for a little bit. But I definitely do like the versatility of it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it seems like you've stumbled upon what a lot of people they end up figuring out, or they don't figure out, unfortunately, is that like there are tools you can use to help yourself with this journey, like the Ozempic type of class of drugs, the GLP-1 agonists and stuff like that. There's more on the market now, of course, and like people have done gastric bypass. They've done the like belly bands and all the other stuff, but ultimately those are training wheels. They're you can overeat on any of these things because it's so easy to overeat, especially if you're reaching for foods that are calorie dense, which carnivore is a very calorie dense type of diet. Even I would put that up there with pretty much any other calorie dense diet. It's just fats are really dense, and unfortunately, a lot of the messaging in the carnivore world is basically like, oh, saturated fat, you can eat all that you want, your body won't store it. Your body won't store animal fat. It'll just, it converts, it's like energy or whatever. And it's completely, contrary to everything we know about how the human body works. But those claims are out there, and a lot of people are mistakenly thinking like, oh, so I can eat all of the meat that I want and I can't gain weight. Well, if you stick and cheese is often thrown in there too for some reason, which is one of the most calorie dense things you can eat. And so like people end up going down this, like they'll stick to it for like a year and they'll get lackluster results, and they think that they have to like go double down harder or something. And their blood work's messed up, their hormones are messed up, their insulin sensitivity is messed up. And even I produced a video today, even real quick, on a study that was released that people following keto, which is going to have the same effect basically as carnivore, that your the plaque that forms in your arteries is actually faster than a diabetic person with metabolic disease. It's fine for elimination for a short time, but people following it for years and years, there are significant consequences and the other thing too is it's really hard to practically implement when you're outside of your home. As soon as you leave your home and you eat somewhere else, you don't know what to do typically. Like people, you can do the whole like order a burger and just eat the patty. I guess you can do that. But that's not necessarily a sustainable way to live. And it doesn't address what you were talking about, that root cause problem of you still have to change your mentality and figure the food thing out. Yeah. You still got to figure it out. That is the ultimate like long-term way for you to get real healing and to become healthy. Is you're not going to, there's not going to be a nice silver bullet. You can sort of embrace a silver bullet for a short time, but eventually you're going to add more foods in if you want to be healthy. And what you're doing is totally right on. When I'm working with someone and they're like, fat loss is my number one priority above everything else, then it's meat, fruits, and vegetables, and eggs maybe. And that's it. I've got a couple people doing that right now, and it works great. But they're also not missing out on any nutrients that are totally needed. Now, should we have some carbs in there? Yes, eventually. You don't want to do that forever. There's a few reasons why, but it's not worth getting into here. But like, at least have the vegetables. And a lot of the carnivore proponents are like, oh, you don't need fiber. Well, you don't need fiber as much when you're eating only meat. I actually agree with that, because a lot of what fiber is doing is helping you transport things in the gut that are specifically from eating vegetables and starchy carbs and things like that. You do actually want those things for motility. It's not so much a problem on carnivore or keto. However, especially for women, you have to watch out. Low gut motility is strongly correlated with really, really excessively high estrogen levels in women, because your body gets rid of excess estrogen by putting it into the gut. Well, guess what happens when the things in your gut aren't moving quickly? You reabsorb it. And so then that becomes this sort of vicious cycle, and really high estrogen does lead to further. It's easier to gain fat when you have really high estrogen. You actually end up being more hungry. So there's a psychological side. There's also a physical side that we know that like high estrogen and high progesterone seem to correlate with your body wanting to store fat, even if you eat the same calories. And so it can become kind of chasing your tail eventually, where you kind of get to the stage where you are, where it's like, oh, I got to add other things here, because like, as nice as it is to pick the like simple thing of like, oh, I just eat meat and everything will be fine. Eventually you come to find out it's probably not going to be fine.
It's kind of like it can be very challenging. Carnivore. Sorry.
Oh no, it's fine. Yeah.
No, go ahead, Emily.
It seems like the second you go carnivore, you have to start preparing to come off carnivore. Like, okay, this is not forever. What's this going to look like once I'm done? How long is it going to be? Because it's just not sustainable. Anyway, go ahead, Amanda.
Yeah, I was going to say it's along those same lines. Probably a mental challenge in and of itself, where if you've tried to lose weight for so long and you're constantly eliminating, to add things back in, like adding more food whenever food is the thing that you're kind of trying to get away from for a while, is probably a mental battle in and of itself. How have you overcome things like that?
Well, God,
Yeah,
a lot of
amen.
prayer, and a supportive daughter and husband. If I'm grabbing something, that they know I'll either have a reaction to, which by the way, after my surgery, I have a lot of allergies now, which is weird. I don't know if it actually caused it or if I've always had these allergies. And because my absorption is different, that I experience them more openly. I'm not really sure. But if it's something that I used to always like eating, but I get a reaction to, they'll be like, okay, we're going to get this out of the house. I'll go ahead and eat it, or they'll be like, are you sure? Do you really think this is the right thing you should be doing? Is this are you going to feel good eating this tomorrow?
Right.
So they know because the battle's in my head, they have to get me to think in my head. So, it's always being, I know we're not supposed to focus on the future all the time because it could cause more anxiety. But for someone like me to be a step ahead mentally, to think of the possible consequences, even over simple matters of what I'm eating today, it really helps. It's a slow, like this slow incline of mental discipline. So just trying to be a day ahead. How am I going to feel tomorrow by eating this? I'm either going to have a pity party or I'm going to have a physical reaction. Either way, it's most likely going to be a negative situation. So is it really worth it? And that's really what it comes down to. Is it really worth it? And asking God, okay, I know it ain't worth it. Can you give me the strength to make my fasting from this worth it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've literally seen lactose intolerant people take one of the pills that helps with lactose ingestion.
My daughter.
And just to go ahead and eat the cheese or drink the milk or whatever it may be. And so I like that you said forward thinking about that because, sometimes that urge is just way too strong. You're like, the taste is more important to me right now than how I feel tomorrow.
Right.
But most of the time it'll be the opposite if you really stop to think about it. If you actually how am I going to feel tomorrow? I'll maybe even look at your agenda. Like, what do I have on tomorrow's agenda? Am I going to be able to do this if I feel absolute terribly? So I like that you use that as a tool. That's really good. And it's hard when you have
Thank you.
Struggled with mental health to be forward thinking. So, props to you for that. So
Thank you.
That's great stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, it's something that I learned back when I was first diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which I believe is overly diagnosed. By the way, I don't think it is as common as people say it is, and sometimes I even doubt that I have it. But I had to go through cognitive behavior therapy, especially after when I had my daughter, because the postpartum was absolutely awful. It lasted about a year. So I try to take the useful things that I learned in therapy to make it applicable to my faith, have it not contradict and be kind of new agey self-worship kind of therapy that I was given. But some of it I think I can apply. And that's where I mean, not jumping too far in the future where it causes anxiety, but just think of the immediate consequences in 12 hours. You're going to feel swollen or you're going to feel sad or you're going to want to eat because it was a poor choice. And the self-abuse always results in more eating, so do you really want to keep spiraling in that cycle when your goal is to get healthy and be a jack grandma? You know what I mean? So got to really think about it.
Would you say that before this mindset shift that you were generally using food to sort of de-stress, you're using it to compensate for a bad day or to sort of eat your stress? Was that sort of was that an environment that you grew up in or a habit that you feel like you had?
So I think it was all impulse. When I was a kid, and I love my parents, and they both have changed, their lives, but, they were kids when they had me. But at the time, there was a lot of dysfunction and, craziness in my home. And I would often wake up the next morning with crumbs in my bed. And apparently it's because I would sleepwalk. And I would go immediately to the refrigerator and take food and go eat it in my bed. I don't remember doing it, but I would remember waking up with food in my bed. I remember that I realized that it was more of an impulsive thing as I got older. Now, when I was a teenager, I was in weightlifting, I was in martial arts, and I was very, very healthy, but I was still 212 pounds at my healthiest. I was buff as all get out in my legs. It's crazy, but still
Love it.
Being 212 at 17 is still pretty hefty. So, I just realized that when I was stressed, it wasn't like, oh, I need to eat something, I'm so hungry. It was just, oh, there's food, grab it and put it in my mouth without even thinking about it. There's like no actual thinking or planning of, I'm just going to eat something. It was just like this automatic, if there's food, I'm numb. There's no rational thinking at all. So that was when we were identifying more of my bipolar issues, because when I would go through a mania, I didn't really feel hungry. I felt energetic. I felt positive. There's optimistic, and and I would eat like a normal person. But once the crash would come, it's just like I'm hungry all the time. Or even if I'm not hungry, I need to have food nearby. So the more I'm able to identify those things, the less I'm impulsive to grab something. Although I did catch myself the other day. I've been really stressed out. So we moved into a new place, and the first day we moved in, it flooded. And, we were just having, fun times, and it's flooded twice since then. So, it's been stressful. And it was amazing, because when that happened, when we walked into the house and water was all over the floor, my first thought was, well, since we have to wait, let's go to Taco Bell. I don't even really like Taco Bell, you guys.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, let's go to Taco Bell. Like, what is that? That was my first thought. Like, not, let's call the landlord and figure out what the heck's going on. It's, hey, let's go to Taco Bell. Like, so it, and my husband's
almost like this isn't happening right now.
Yeah. My husband's like, what?
I know how this can be better.
Yeah.
You know how the situation could be better? If we were at Taco Bell right
Let's
now.
go to Taco Bell. Like, we'll just leave the water here with the cats and all the electric stuff,
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Tacos and a flooded house is better than a flooded house. So.
Yeah, but it's not even real tacos. Like, I live in freaking Texas, where there's real tacos. And I'm like, let's go to Taco Bell.
There's a lot of really good food in Texas.
Like, come on, man. So, I mean, that just goes to show where my brain's still at, because this happened like just a couple weeks ago, and it's like, it wasn't even, it just boom, popped in my head, Taco Bell, and it's such a stupid thing that my brain does. But it's something that I have to be intentional and observant about, because it's going to do that, I wish I can rewire it. And I'm hoping one day that these impulses will, come less and less. But for now, it's still something I have to really be on top of.
Yeah. You said you've been working out now recently too. How long have you been back at that with any weight stuff? And how does that improve or change the way that you're doing everything else?
So I am starting to gain some muscle back. Like I said, the weight, hasn't really increased or decreased. But these past 2 weeks, I haven't been as active as I should be. But when I am active, I'm doing a lot of weightlifting. I like weightlifting the best. I feel more, I don't know, you lift weights. I'm sure you know what I mean. Like, I just feel like there's some kind of control that I have. I have control of something. Out of everything else I can't control, I'm lifting this heavy thing, and it feels great to lift this heavy thing, So, So I like doing that, although I do want to do a little more cardio, just because I get these, weird dizzy spells out of nowhere, and I'm just like, nah, I want to go do more walking. I want to go hiking. So once the house thing is taken care of, my daughter and I especially, plan on doing more cardio stuff, and then just hitting the gym 3 times a week for the heavy stuff.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't. I mean, you can obviously lose a lot of weight on diet alone. And lifting weights is going to do a bunch of things for you. Obviously, there's the mental win, but there's also preserving your muscle mass, especially when you're losing a lot of weight. Like, if you're trying to lose 100 pounds, you're going to lose a lot of muscle mass if you're not training. Even if you're getting your protein in, that's what's going to happen. And so it's protecting your metabolic health, among many other things. But then on top of that, when you add in even just like hiking, like low intensity, steady state type of cardio, it really helps accelerate the process. You're also just going to be healthier in general. Obviously, like there's a litany of benefits there, but you, at a certain point, caloric restriction kind of becomes chasing your tail in a certain sense, because you're not getting certain nutrients. You get more, you get kind of get diet fatigue after a while. And the other, typically someone that's trying to lose a lot of weight already has compromised metabolic health. And we know that walking specifically, especially walking after a meal, is very, very helpful for your metabolic health. And there's a reason why bodybuilders, the closer they get to a show, they don't restrict calories increasingly as much. And some of them actually add calories in the closer they get to a show. They'll increase cardio. That's how you lose the weight. Because they're already eating as little as they should anyway, and without dying. And so like you start adding a lot of cardio in toward the end, because you can go the pure caloric restriction route, but ultimately you're going to be less healthy. And it becomes really, really hard to lose weight without moving. Even like the weight that I've lost recently, adding in just more steps has made the process easier and go by faster. The other thing too is sunlight exposure has been demonstrated to reduce hunger. You're not as hungry when you're exposed to the sun. It's been pretty well studied. And so like there's also a sort of synergistic effect if you're going outside and walking to just, you're going to be a little less hungry in general.
Sometimes
Ashley,
when you're adding muscle, though, you get more hungry because your muscle muscle is expensive tissue and it wants to be fed. So there's kind of a balance there. But having more muscle and being able to eat a little bit more can also help prevent some of those nutrient deficiencies, because you can have more food. I know that's hard to think about when it's already a struggle to get the protein in every single day. But the more that you're moving, the more that you're working out, the easier it's going to be to want to eat more. And that may introduce another mental battle where now you're adding more food. Oh my goodness, where is this going to go?
After my whole life, I've been, don't eat this much. Yeah,
exactly. It's a scary thing, but there's a balance. There's a balance to it. And so that's why I like using more metrics than just a scale. Take the progress photos, even on your days that you're not feeling so great. You're probably going to look back at that picture and be like, wow, that was great progress. And now look where I am even now. Progress photos, other kinds of measurements, like those are great as long as it's not something that you tend to obsess over. And yourself, whether you'll obsess over those other things or not. But there's so much more to look at than just the scale. Even like your food tracker, if you're tracking your food and you're like, wow, look, I'm getting more protein more easily than I was a month ago. Those are other wins that you can use to encourage yourself and, share with, don't be afraid of the fitness people, share those things with us because we'll cheer you on and be by your side during all of that. So you can find little wins, little encouragements. You've come a really, really long way already. Becoming more self-aware over all of those different aspects is a big part of it, and hopefully keeps you a little bit having less of a struggle with the mental challenge part of it as time goes on. But I mean, you've done the hard work already with the mindset shift. Getting this far.
I'm trying. I also have to thank my husband about the picture thing. I was doing a DDP's yoga program for a little while to help get some strength in my stabilizers for my knees. I had a picture taken and I was so depressed. Like it was like this huge negative thing for me. It's like it was not motivating me to change. I was just like, there's no way I can get out of this. Like, cause this is when I was almost 450. And I'm like, there's no way. There's no way I can get out of this prison. And so I just started spiraling. So I'm like, I can't take any more part. So my husband, his clever self, we had taken a road trip and we were out in the redwoods, and I've got my bow staff that I was using as a walking stick, like I'm some freaking wizard. And I'm walking in the redwood forest and I'm with my sister-in-law and everything and my daughter. After we come back, I see this collection of photos and he got one he got one of me. And usually I'm really good for being as big as I was. I was good at dodging them cameras, and so he got me good. And I was like, good God, I look like I'm almost as white as this redwood trunk. And he was like, stop. And then he took a picture of me and he said, look at this difference between our trip and where you're at now. And that was finally where I was like, at that time I had lost about 175. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, there it is. That's what everyone's talking about, taking them before and after photos, because I just get so into my own head with negativity and like, how could I do this to myself and blah. And then he's like, I had to sneak this, but here we go. Look how far you've come. So as far as progress stuff, I have to leave that up to someone else because I end up making myself crazy. But I don't know. I
praise
think
God
I could
for that,
try.
though.
Yeah, he's a good man. God gave me a good man.
It sounds like one thing that was a mindset shift for me. Not that I've never been overweight. I was actually underweight because I weighed 135 and I'm 5'11", so like that's not a healthy weight for someone to be in that's that height. And but one thing that was a mindset shift for me when I began thinking about food more deliberately, probably 15 years ago or so, because before it was just like, well, just don't get fat and you're fine. There's a whole lot more to it than that.
Right.
Was reading about, not that I'm saying you should imitate everything from this culture, but the way that Americans tend to think about food is what you want to eat is what's nearby and whatever sounds like it tastes good, whatever's palatable, based on how you feel at the moment. Whereas generally in China, they tend to eat food based on how they want to feel after the meal instead of how they want to feel while they're eating it. And I was like, oh, that's very interesting. And then I started noticing that I ate certain foods. If I had whatever for lunch, I would feel more tired in the afternoon and I would start dragging. And that was certainly kind of similar to what you were talking about of like, okay, how's this going to make me feel in several hours in that kind of shift? It's your body typically telling you like, hey, maybe you should eat something else next time and not reach for that because it's not like actually helping me right now. This isn't the nutrition I need, because you can get those macros from all sorts of places, but is this the right place to be getting them? Even if your macros are good, it does come down to more than that. And shifting the mindset to how am I going to feel later? Am I going to is this going to conflict with me doing what I need to do for the rest of the day because I'm going to be tired or I'm going to feel crummy or my digestion's going to be poor or something along those lines. I think that kind of describes something similar for you. It happened to me as well. That can be sort of the beginning of a journey of being a little bit more deliberate about the kind of foods we eat so that we can think through the consequences, not just like, oh, I'm going to get fat if I eat this, but it actually should transcend that into like, there's typically a strong correlation between like the food that damages us, whether it makes us gain excessive weight or whatever it is. You generally don't feel very good eating at like after you eat it. You might feel good during. So it's like, do you want that 15 minutes, half an hour of pleasure for several hours of displeasure and, making it harder for you to be the kind of mother that you want to be and the kind of wife that you want to be? Or do you want something that's going to actually be fuel and make it so that like, well, if I eat this kind of lunch, I'll actually do better in the afternoon than I would have if I skipped it because I've chosen the right kinds of things.
Hey, Ashley, I wanted to ask you about, because I know you've brought it up a couple of times now about your husband being so helpful and even your daughter. And I would like to know, when you first started down this journey and you were just like, okay, I have to make changes, I can't keep going like this. How did they react? And did it take a while for them to learn how to be supportive, or were they just like on board right away? Or even other members of your family or your friends, just how people reacted when you were ready? And because the people around us are just so important and they really influence a lot of our successes and failures sometimes.
Sorry, I was getting some breakage there, but I think I got the main gist of the question. I think it was a mixture of everything. My husband, as I said, I've tried all the diets. I've done all the crash courses and everything. And so I think he was, of course he's supportive in me getting healthy, but I think he was also afraid that if I fell off that I would spiral down into this self-hatred cycle that I would always get myself into.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been something that has always negatively affected our marriage is that I would never accept a compliment, of how he thinks I'm pretty and everything. I would always shoot him down.
Yeah.
And he says, I understand you do that because, if you allow yourself to be lifted up, you're afraid you're going to get knocked back down, because that's usually my pattern of relationships in my life have done that. So I guess that's kind of been a mechanism. If I keep myself down, it won't hurt. So,
Right.
so I would say he was supportive, but also hesitant because he didn't want to see me abuse myself mentally. And my daughter was kind of in the same boat. I think I have negatively affected her as well because she, doesn't have a good relationship with food either. Like if she grabs a snack, like she loves Takis, and if she eats some Takis, then she's like, she'll start having these realizations of this is going to make me really fat, and it's like, okay,
Right.
no, don't be me. Don't do the things that you've seen me do to myself. Okay. It's okay to have these snacks every now and then. If you're moving and the rest of your diet is good, keep drinking your water, don't punish yourself like this. Do not do what I've done because you will go through hell to try to get back out of it. So, I think this has kind of been an all team effort where they're ready to catch me if I mentally slip. And I'm there to be like, hey, we can all be on the path to health here. There is an objective here, and that's to be good stewards of our bodies, and to be strong grandparents when she gets married and has her children. That is the goal, no matter what we're feeling temporarily or what slips we've made or what our past has been. We're going to glorify God and live forever, and we need to be good stewards with what we've got. So that mentality, that reminder has been what has motivated all of us to be supportive and, ignore the flesh when the flesh is weak. So I hate to be like a dependent person, but I really am. I'm heavily dependent on my husband. And, in a way he is to me on other certain matters, but I don't think I could have gotten where I am now without God putting him in my life and helping me get there, So,
Praise the Lord.
Yeah, we do this as a family. It's not just for me. I want to see grandbabies. I want to be able to play with grandbabies and run. I want to be a fun grandma. I don't want to be sitting there on an oxygen tank, and not being able to get around to do simple things. So I want to be a cool Jack grandma. So I'm working to it.
I heard you say that for the first time on your podcast, actually, when you said, one day I'm going to be a jacked grandma. And I was like, I love that. I want that on a shirt, like trademark it, put it, start making the merch. That's
all right,
great.
I'll get on that. Yeah, I definitely want to be a jack grandma. One day I'm going to wear that shirt too.
Hey, I've been saying that for like 5 years. That's mine first, isn't it?
It's true.
Oh, you want to be a jack grandma, Justin?
I've been saying
my sons say that. They're like, you're gonna be a jack grandma, Mom.
Heck yeah.
Yes, you are.
I think that's really the sort of the mindset and the dream, though, is like you should be aiming for not just what can I be now, but like what am I building towards in the future, so that you have capabilities later in life that others honestly don't often get to enjoy, so that you can be useful in old age, because a lot of people think it's shallow to say something like that, but the truth is we live in a physical world and we interact with people physically. And if you're not capable, if you're so tired that mentally you can't be there for your grandkids and your children, even when they're adults, then guess what? That's profoundly spiritual. This is not just a physical thing. It's a spiritual thing that is affected by the physical world. Like if you can't get around, then you can't be there for them. If you're mentally bogged down and foggy, then you can't be there for them. If you get dementia younger than you otherwise would have, or maybe you wouldn't have got it at all, it's strongly correlated with diabetes and other metabolic diseases. These things do matter. And the fact that you can, sort of get away with certain things when you're younger doesn't make it so that it's okay. These things might feel like they sneak up on you, but they don't really, because we see the trends and we know what's happening. We know what's going on. And we have really good information now to know that, like, when this is what starts, this is where it generally leads.
Yeah.
Yeah, this reminds me of two things that we mentioned in my podcast episode where, we were talking about how these obese women that are trying to convince people that they're healthy, it's like, you might feel like you're healthy in your 20s. You could be a size 28 or whatever and think that you're just fine because you got some endurance of youth. Okay.
Yeah.
But you hit 35 and
Just
you
wait.
start having symptoms of a 60-year-old woman.
Yeah.
There's a problem, so
Right.
the issue's already there. You're going to feel it later. But another thing that reminds me of our conversation is, and it's also a motivator for me, I do not want to be stuck in the web of the medical industry. I have had so many doctors overprescribe medications that have made me feel so much worse, that have cost me so much money, that has treated me like I was just a paycheck and not an actual person who needs help. I'm tired of dealing with that. I'm tired of being poked and prodded with no solution. And so it's like, I'm going to have to take this control and, have my little unit that we have here to work it out, because I do not want to rely on pharmaceuticals, and I don't want to rely on someone who really doesn't care,
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty much the tools they have in their tool chest, right? None of them sat you down and went, hey, this is how you should start thinking about food differently. Here's a diet plan. It's not like you didn't pay money to them. They would have been easy for them to at least on scratch paper, like, hey, try eating this every day. There's a lot of ways to serve better than just pushing drugs. Drugs are a last resort. They're what you do when you tried and maybe you want an assist, or it can be like training wheels, like we talked about before, but they're not the solution. And the thing is, even if you're on Ozempic, you shouldn't be on Ozempic for life.
Right.
So like, where does this lead? Eventually you have to learn how to eat properly.
Yeah.
And part of that is a process of integrating with the world around you so that you can eat a healthy diet wherever you are, in a restaurant or something else. But that takes training. That takes a while. And drugs don't teach you how to do that. And, either you figure it out yourself or you hire someone, basically, because you're typically not going to get that from the medical world. They're not trained that way. It's not their business model. They know how to prescribe drugs, and they know how to, give you procedures and things like that. But you're not going to learn how to. It's not like when you got the belly band and stuff. They didn't give you like training after that was like, hey, this is how you should eat from now on, because you're going to have a hard time getting your protein in. This is how you can begin to integrate healthier foods. Like, all that would make sense to go along with the package, but it wasn't. It was like, okay, well, we build you, go home now.
Yeah, here's the food pyramid, and some, powdered protein shakes and a bunch of pills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Food
pills.
Pyramid and pills. There you go. Godspeed. Come back for more pills later.
We have a lot to say about the food pyramid.
Oh yeah, so do I.
We haven't done a podcast on it, but we probably should, and just break it down. But
and the history behind
having
it. That's a good
grains
topic.
from the pillar of your nutritional intake is not that I'm against grains. I eat grains and I put grains on diet plans, but like they're not the cornerstone of your nutritional intake, or they shouldn't be.
Certainly not Kellogg's cereal.
Yeah. Oh, don't get me started on Kellogg's. Woo! I had to do a presentation on them in college, and I found out some crazy stuff about Kellogg's.
We'll talk after. I like these things.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a South Park episode, actually. I'm one of those dorks. I like South Park. And they had said that if you just turn the triangle or the pyramid upside down, that would be more of the accurate way to eat food.
It's probably better. Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. You want your priorities to be your meats, your lean meats, and then all the other things that follow. And then grains are at the very, very bottom, you don't really need that many. So I've kind of adopted that mentality, I think, with food, like as far as necessities go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And whatever is being pushed is going to flip and flop back and forth until the end of time. So.
Right.
Yeah, well, the official recommendation not too long ago was like, eggs are bad for you, they're going to kill you. Now it's like, oh, well, we were probably wrong about that. And then saturated fats in red meats were the enemy. And now they've done a number of long-term like meta-analyses and been like, actually, people who eat a lot of red meat seem to be weirdly healthy. We don't know why that is. Like, it's just, and then everyone, demonized, like burgers because they had red meat, right? So they must be terrible. There's potatoes because you're eating the fries. Well, nobody thought to stop to think about like people that typically eat out like that a lot are also getting a shake with it and a soda. Like most people that get a burger and fries are drinking a soda with it. And if they're not getting a soda, they're getting a shake. Maybe both if you want to go crazy. And that's where the problem is. The problem is not like deep fried potatoes. Is that so bad? Not really. But like if you're having a sugary drink with it that's got a cup or 2 cups of white sugar in it suspended in water, that seems like a problem. But according to the food pyramid, it's a balanced diet. I mean, so yeah. Anyway,
they do it on purpose. But to get into the conspiracies, they do it on purpose.
I mean, ultimately we know now that like a lot of what's on the food pyramid, it was you can follow the money.
Yeah, great. For it.
Yeah, I mean, and I believe Kellogg's was actually part of that. They funded a number of studies to put grains, at the the prominent position. It was breakfast cereal companies. I believe Kellogg's was actually specifically one of the big players there that funded a lot of those studies, and basically the sugar industry demonized red meat. That was basically their bag, was demonizing red meat and eggs
and butter.
And butter. Yeah, which like butter's not bad for you. Obviously, it's really easy to have too much of it in something because it's fats.
Like don't eat a stick of butter, but
you don't go around munching on a stick. Yeah,
it's not like it's not particularly nutritious, but it's not bad to have butter in moderation. There's nothing inherently bad about it if it fits your macros, basically.
Yeah.
And like
they just wanted to sell their margarine.
Yeah, it was to sell. It was to sell margarine.
Which I'm an 80s baby. I had a mom that had margarine all the time. It's like
country crock. Yep.
There you go. Yep.
You guys are gonna laugh. My mom, because she didn't like how expensive margarine was back in the 90s, used to buy margarine and then she would cut it. She would cut it with
plug yours.
Oh shoot! What oil was it? It was canola oil. That's what it was.
Ooh.
Yeah, 50-50. Yeah, it spreads really nice because it's
economical, and you get a Tupperware whenever the tub is done.
That's right. You can put mashed potatoes in it later.
Yeah, but that was actually like what she did because everything she was reading was like, oh yeah, canola oil is really good for you, which it's basically an industrial lubricant, and there's nothing particularly healthy for you in there. It's not the worst thing probably, but it goes rancid really easy from overuse, and that's often the state that we have it in if we're having processed foods that are either from the frozen section in the grocery store, or if you're eating out. There's probably canola oil, and it's probably rancid, and it's probably been very oxidized. Good
Yummy.
stuff.
And we spend so much money on it. It's crazy.
Well, Ash, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
I think we've used up enough of your time. I really appreciate hearing about your journey, your mindset shift. I think this will be encouraging to a lot of people. And we'll look forward to maybe having you on sometime, in the coming months or years or whatever, and talking further about your journey and how that's helped.
I'd love that.
I hope that, yeah, definitely. And I hope the takeaway that everyone can have here is like, becoming healthy is not just about following some fad diet that's very simple.
Yeah.
That might be how you start, and that might be a way to like get you going. But remember, the things that you do to start most journeys are not the things that you do to make them sustainable and continue them. And it's the same thing with your health. There are going to be, it gets more complicated, especially as you address, like you mentioned, the psychology and the mind of the whole thing. Like the mindset set shifts are going to have to be also occurring at the same time. If your mind doesn't change, your body won't either. And real quick, Ash, can you also tell us, like, how can people find you online, listen to your podcast? You cover a lot of great topics I think a lot of people would love to hear about.
Oh, well, thank you. So yeah, it's the AshBrews Podcast. I'm mainly on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music. So you can find me anywhere on there. I'm on Facebook and X, where I'm just kind of popping up a bunch of materials. So I'm still in my infancy, but it's taken off. And I really appreciate you guys having me on. I really like sharing it and having support. So I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us. Definitely look forward to the next time. If anyone's interested in hearing more about how we might be able to help anyone with their fitness journey, weight loss, muscle gain, strength training, or athletes or anyone like that, go to highcallingfitness.com and book a free meeting with one of the coaches. We'd be happy to talk to you and just hear more about what's going on in your life and how we might be able to help. And otherwise, we'll look forward to you guys all being here next time. Until then, gains and grace.
Gains and grace.
Bye.
All right.